changes in the authorized, or whatever the right one is, in the posted amounts to be made for that particular line item. Does that make sense?
Are you saying, if I could, Madam Chairman, is the discussion on the salary still, or are you saying any
Yes,
line?
the salaries.
In relation to salaries, I would agree with what you're saying.
Well, what's the difference in what you just said and doing what I said and combining the salaries? I'm doing it legally, combining it, putting it in the budget that way. The other way is you're doing it differently. You can move them within salaries, but we're not gonna put it in the budget like that.
If I could? I think the concern in the past over a great number of years is that we had items like salary items, and it contained a very large number. And we kept trying to make those, and everyone would say, well, where's all of that money? So we kept adding lines for all of these things. So we had accountability next year. So out of that salary line, special deputies, or deputies, if we're gonna use this department, commanded this much money and needed this much money. And I think the only difference we're saying right now, Frank, is I believe the delegation would like to keep all of those lines together so that we can keep revisiting every year. But we're just saying to the department head, being the sheriff, in the salary line, and if you're short this and you need it here, you're allowed to move it there. But what I'm saying, next year when he comes back into the budget cycle, it's his responsibility then to realign it where it should have been. But we shouldn't have to sit here and make him move for that item. Now, let's say dispatch needs a new computer and the deputies need guns. Well, he can't be spending dispatch money for guns. That's, as soon as he switches a line item, he's gone. But as long as it's in salary, he can move salary. That's what I understand is happening, Frank. I like your idea of simplicity, of lumping all the salaries together, but I know the delegation in the past doesn't like to see that.
I wouldn't like to see that either. But let me just add that the delegation takes a lot of time to go through a budget line item by line item by line item. And an appropriation is a line item. When we appropriate an amount of money for a specific purpose, that's it. By allowing anything else to happen, we're saying, okay, what we did doesn't matter. You can usurp our authority anytime you want.
I disagree. I understand what you're saying, but I disagree. I think if we didn't come back next year and make him realign where that money should be for the next year, then I think he's usurping what we're doing. But I think we're talking about a managerial task, weekly that's being done, and it would appear that the task is too much to get it done on a weekly basis. So I'm for allowing the department head to move within salary lines and only salary lines.
Now, that's a problem now, because if you allow it for one department,
This is across the board.
Across
you
the
have
board.
to.
Across the board.
Well, then you get into the nursing home with, millions of dollars worth of salaries, and now you're in problem if you're giving them permission to move their salaries anywhere they want.
But the nursing home, each department has its own
I know, and
section.
that's the
And
way
then,
it should
you know,
be.
And then, the nursing has, a couple of sections, but as a whole, maintenance, it's a salary line and an overtime line.
I agree.
Dietary, it's a salary line and overtime. So there isn't moving,
I know, but if they do what they're saying now, that to combine the salary lines, and let the department heads move money within the salary line, that's what you're gonna end up with.
Okay.
The maintenance is part of the.
Yeah, but they still have that's their own department.
You cannot move across departments. You can
Right.
only move within the departments.
I know, but maintenance for the nursing home is still part of the nursing home. It's in the nursing home's
All right.
department.
So what I'd like to do is, this is, I think, the right words. We're going to request the commissioners revisit the salary lines of the budget and determine if they want to physically change the appropriated amounts. Does that make sense?
I wouldn't say, it might just change the appropriation.
they physically want to change the,
Basically, what you're saying, you want the department head to be able to manage to the bottom line salary. That's what
Yes.
I'm hearing.
Right.
That's what you gotta say. And how that's broken down for budget purposes, who cares?
but I think.
It has to be filled in, but basically what you're saying for exceptions,
Mhm.
you're holding the sheriff accountable to the bottom line.
Right, but I can't make that decision. That's the commissioners have to make
Well,
that
yeah,
decision.
but I'm saying, I think what your recommendation is trying to say is that. In other words, you don't want to see a report for every subset of the salary line. All you want to see is, did he exceed his total department salary line?
I still don't
Okay.
see what the problem is
So-
for the sheriff who is here every day to walk into one of the commissioner's office and say, I need more money in this line and I want to take it out of this line.
Right.
What's the problem there?
Okay. What we're going to do is we're gonna take a vote. Okay? And then I will formally send a letter to the commissioners requesting that they look at this as one of our subcommittee items. Okay? And then the commissioners, that's their decision how they wanna handle it. But anyhow. So, what we're asking, I think, and we'll make sure that we get words that are appropriate in here eventually. But we're asking the commissioners to review if they physically want to change the appropriation within the salary lines when changes in where the salary, the split of the salary comes. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so I will put something in writing to that effect, and I'll get it across to everybody. So if we could do that,
Are we gonna vote on it
yeah,
or just do it?
we're gonna vote, okay? Steve?
If I got it right, I'm saying the motion would be the commissioners should consider only the department total salary line for exemption approval,
Lines
for exception approval.
with an S. It's more than one line, it's lines.
Line. Sorry, lines.
Okay? All right. So, answer, yes or no?
Yes.
Karen, yes.
No.
Frank, no.
Mark, yes.
Okay. So I will get this off to the commissioners within the next day or two, so that they have it for their meeting on the,
We will not have a meeting this Wednesday.
no, on whenever your next meeting is.
Right.
I knew it was 2 weeks. Okay,
Can I just have one other comment?
sure.
One of the reports, and again, it's just for management purposes, that I've never seen, that was always part and parcel of our budget process. I've really never seen a headcount report. And basically going along with this, as an example, if the sheriff has authorized 10 deputies and 12 assistant deputies, all the headcount report does is authorized headcount, actual headcount, and it's done by month. I don't know whether you guys have that or you don't have it, but it really explains, if you just look at it and glance at it, what's driving this. And it's a simple report, and it just eliminates so many managerial problems because it makes so much sense. So, I mean, as an information tool, I'd love to see it. And it should be done for every department head, by the way.
That's a good idea.
Mhm.
We
Can you
do.
put that in there too?
Please.
Head count, monthly?
Yeah, it's a monthly head count report.
Were you saying what was appropriate also in what's
Yeah,
what's being
authorized
used?
versus actual,
Thank
that's
you.
all it is. Simple report. If
Yeah.
if he's authorized 12 and he's running with 10, guess what? You now have, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why his salary line is skewed.
Right.
And then you go on and on. Or, there you go.
Okay. Now, okay, thank you.
I'm here to help.
I know you are.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, anytime, who notifies whom when when it appears that you're going to go over your authorized amount? In other words, I get a bill for, office supplies. I went down to somebody or other with my credit card and I bought office supplies. And I have exceeded that by $200. How do I know when that occurs so I can go to the commissioners and get that money switched? Have I already expended it without authority?
Yes.
So how do I know?
So that's the
Can I get back to my very good idea of the exception reporting again? No.
Yeah,
Again, if you agree on a variance on the budget, but you don't want to go crazy like you've exceeded $5, who cares? If you agree, however, that any exception exceeding 10% needs to be explained, and all the department head does every month, he doesn't need a meeting. He prepares an exception report, signs his name to it, and he sends it to the commissioners. That's it. That's all he has to do. Mission accomplished.
Kathy, is that something that your data system allows you to do?
As far as, when department heads come in with their budget, let's say they say office supplies, they know what they're gonna be getting through the year. And let's say something out of the ordinary comes along, I'm of the belief that they look at that line and say, okay, I'm not gonna order a couple reams of, paper, I need an ink cartridge to stay within my budget. Because they created their budget as to what they need. So if something out of the ordinary happens, if something breaks, then they would know if they were going over.
But when, do they get weekly reports as to what their expenditures are against their budget?
They can do that, because they get their weekly printout of what is spent. Some of them will call up and say, geez, can I have a printout today? We can do that. We can do a weekly report of where their expenditures are at. And it can give them a detail. We oftentimes, like the nursing home, I'm just saying office supplies, they'll call and say, office supplies, I need a detail for that account. We can send it to them and see where they're at before they go and buy something. Or if something breaks,
What I'm,
like the boiler or something, you know what I mean?
what I'm trying to come to grips with is that we don't want to overspend and then, although ask for forgiveness, right, instead of permission, okay. But I think our concept is that if we have a line item, and I mean, so before the let's say that your report for the end of September shows that your office supply line has spent 90% of your budgeted thing. So that means that you have $500 left, right? That's what
Yeah, you're gonna look at it and say,
Okay.
I can only
So-
get so much paper.
So before the secretary or whoever goes to the office supply store, somebody should tell her, you only have $500 left for the rest of the year. Comments?
If I could, I understand where you're going. The part, and perhaps it can't be tackled here, the problem I have is the department that hasn't spent, instead of 500, has $1,500 left in that line. And as most departments do in all government, they'll spend that last $1,500. I don't know if there's a way to get that in there that, that's almost as big a problem as the other.
So if I'm understanding this correctly,